to make this talk for you, because this is where you can help. The humanitarian objective is to make a safe environment in which the fourth dynamic engram can be audited out. By engram, we mean the mental block that prevents peace and tolerance. By fourth dynamic, we mean that impulse to survive as mankind instead of just individuals. Obviously, we must do this. An auditing session where Scientology processing is administered cannot be continually disturbed or held in a noisy, misemotional place. Therefore, the upsets and conflicts and intolerance of the planet would prevent or slow progress in trying to audit the world. That's obvious. So we have a humanitarian objective, to make a safe environment in which the fourth dynamic engram can be audited. Therefore, we and you and all of us have a responsibility. You cannot live sanely in a world in which nations behave like criminals to their peoples and toward each other, in a world where pressure groups stamp out all rights in order to advance their own. Only to some small extent, does the individual have any rights or justice. Therefore, by defending the individual or group against injustice and oppression, and by advancing the cause of human rights, great progress can be made toward the humanitarian objective. And you can help. It is easier than it looks. Ask your local org about gung-ho groups. There is also a policy letter, 31 January 1969, about the humanitarian objectives, which shows how this group works. It is an exciting program. So that our major public program for 1969 is called the gung-ho groups. Now, in 1967, the fact that only a handful of people in the world oppose Scientology was much expanded in 1968. We learned a great deal more about this, and we learned the organizations through which they operate. We learned what organizations they use. And these are the psychiatric front organizations, usually called mental health groups of one type or another, which are in every country of the world, which makes us very international. Now, what these fellows are trying to do, apparently, is degrade the West. And if they degrade the West far enough, of course, the West can be conquered. That's fairly obvious. So we come along, and they don't quite know what to make out of us, except it becomes obvious to them that we help people and improve people and give people hope, and this cuts straight across any program involved with degrading the West. Well, that being the case, then the natural thing to do to handle this situation, and the one thing we have to do to handle the situation, is, of course, make the West more capable of defending itself, make it more efficient, make it more able to handle its problems and less likely to become involved with war. War is actually the result of incompetent governments. Now, for public statement, what we're trying to do then is to revitalize the West. Now, you should score that down as the statement which should be made over and over again. What are Scientology organizations trying to do? They're trying to revitalize the West. And how are they trying to revitalize the West? Well, they're trying to revitalize the West by putting forward and insisting upon human rights. The West cannot be revitalized without human rights. And the biggest abuse of human rights which exists today is, of course, the psychiatric violations of human rights and their abuse to patients. Now, this is our job because we are getting increasing numbers of people who have been messed up by psychiatry and in institutions, and some very, very, very ugly stories. Not a few, but many, many, many are coming through into our lines now to such a degree that it is no exaggeration to say that they run psychiatric death camps. I know that sounds very rabble-roused, but the truth of the matter is they are death camps. They lure people in, for instance, as voluntary patients. They hurt them, they mess them up, they fill them full of drugs, and they smash them down with 50,000 volts. They tear their brains up. They actually use an instrument which is an ice pick to do this. And the people only live for a very short time when they're treated in this way, if they don't die at once, which many of them, of course, do. But after the fellow has gone in as a voluntary patient, they won't let him out. And they do other nasty things. They sterilize him, castrate him, mess him up, sexual perversions, that sort of thing with their patients. And this is coming through to us to such an extent that it is a wonder that some of these governments don't object to murder. That sort of is interesting to me, that certain areas don't seem to object to this murder. And they seem to find out that we have occasionally a dirty fingernail, but and therefore we're very bad. But the psychiatrist murders people outright and forthrightly, and he's okay. So figure it out. It tells you that the society is pretty far gone. So anyway, what we're trying to do then is we're trying to revitalize Western society. Well, the Gung-Ho program, this actually will rekindle the purposes and ambitions of individuals in the public if run off according to the way it is given in the policy letters which cover it. And the general attack line is along the lines of human rights. Human rights. Now, I'll give you a clue now how this is handled. Somebody comes up to you, he's a hostile person, he's hostile to Scientology. And he says to you, he says, well, these Scientology, and you say, why are you against human rights? And then, if you know anything about human rights, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, United Nations, that sort of thing, if you know something about this subject, you just follow it right straight up. Total attack. In other words, you don't defend Scientology. You just simply attack along this line of human rights. Somebody else comes along, hostile. He says something to you about this, or he says something in press or in a group or something like this, and something about treatment or something in Scientology, and you should come back at him. Why are you in favor of psychiatric death camps? Why are you in favor of psychiatric brutality to human beings? And just let him try to handle that ball. And use these two things. Now, the Gung-Ho group and its activities will revitalize the West. Our technology, of course, can't help but do that. It is only fought by people who are trying to degrade the West. And in your general activities,